When you have stress, play chess. When you fall on your ass, play chess for a real deal. Follow Christian Seel.
Welcome back. Round 8 of this year's Schach Bundesliga season was on the Sunday of Karneval. Since I planned to attend the local parade after the game, I suggested to my teammates to play our games in Carnival costumes. Unfortunately, there was no majority for my proposal, and since we have to play in the same dresses, the dragon was not an option for me. Thus, I had to switch my dress to the regular yellow team dress. I took on the young German Grandmaster Jan-Christian Schröder as part of the match between our club Aachener SV and Schachfreunde Berlin. The match was a complete disaster. We lost the match with a score of 1/2 to 7.5, and I have to say that this score was completely deserved for Berlin. Let's take a look at the game. I started the game with a move knight f3, to which he replied knight f6, c4, e6, and after knight c3 I was expecting him to go for d5 to transpose into some sort of queen's gambit position. Instead, he played the move bishop b4. And this move was already played against me by Nikita Vityugov in round 1 of this Bundesliga season. So I should have thought about him playing that move a little bit more, in the sense that this is not his usual repertoire. And I should have anticipated that he's probably quite well prepared against my line, which I played against Vityugov. Though I had quite fond memories, of course, of the Vityugov game, and so I decided to stick to my guns and just play the move g3. Maybe I should have gone for something else like queen c2, or maybe even the interesting move g2 to g4 here. Yet, as I said, I played g3, and I was basically adopting a kind of show me what you got approach, and he showed me what his preparation is by castling and going d5 immediately. So Vityugov played knight c6 and then d5, and now he went d5 immediately. And his idea is different from Vityugov's idea in the sense that he does not want to place his knight on c6. I took on d5, and I just played short castles. So here I already had thought a little bit, because obviously black has the option to go d4 here, when after knight b5 it was not immediately clear to me how to assess this position, and indeed it's actually pretty unclear. So black can either go for something like knight c6, or maybe even for this somewhat strange looking move d3, with the idea of disrupting my development. And in case I take on d3, maybe he can just go something like knight c6 and play for an advantage in development. But I was ready for some crazy position to get a fight, because I mean, of course, my opponent is higher rated than me, but he's one of the lowest rated people on the first board. So I was ready to go all out to try to score a win in the game. Well, so I was actually kind of hoping for d4 with a very complicated position, but he chose to play c6, which was also his preparation. And I think at that point I should have thought a little bit more, and then I should have went for the move d3, with the idea of going e4 at some point. One very immediate way for black to play would be to go d4, and after knight e4 maybe to even take on e4. But I think in this particular line, so after something like bishop c5, probably white is just better after, like, say queen c2. So I think after d3 here, an immediate d4 is probably not what black should do. And if instead black waits, maybe I can go a3 next move and then somehow prepare to go e4. Well, instead of going d3 though, I went for kind of similar plan as in the Vityugov game, which is to go a3 and after bishop e7 just to play d4. and then finish my development with bishop f4. And he still blitzed out his moves, and I think it's pretty obvious that he was prepared for exactly that line, because from a human perspective, playing a3 and d4 is the most natural thing to do. So he played bishop to f5, and after bishop f4, he also played knight bd7 pretty much immediately. And yes, so if you turn on the computer, if you turn on the engine here, it tells you that black is already slightly better. I made some natural moves with this a3, d4, but these were definitely not best moves. And by the engine evaluation, I'm already slightly worse with white again after 10 moves. So this is now the second time in a row after the game against Pub last time that I'm already slightly worse with white after 10 moves, and this is an absolute disaster. And I definitely have to change something in the openings for the next games to give a better fight in the first league. So I went 95, and actually during the game, of course, I didn't know the computer evaluation, so I was not that unhappy. So I thought I go 95. Maybe black's plan is not very clear, and my plan is kind of clear. So I will aim for some minority attack on the queen side. I will go basically b4, maybe rook ac1, a4, b5, and yeah, then try to disrupt his pawn chain here. So the goal of the minority attack is always to go b4 and b5. And then if black takes, then this pawn is gone, and these two pawns can become targets. And if black does not take, then white exchanges on c6, and this pawn is gone, and so this pawn can in particular be a target. So yeah, that was my plan. He played rook e8, and I started to implement this plan by playing the move b2 to b4. It has to be said, though, that in this position the minority attack is not that promising. And the main reason for this is that black is relatively well developed. Plus, black quite often has the option to go c5 after b5, which is usually not the case. And so yeah, he played a6, queen b3, and now he played the move knight b6. The idea of knight b6 is to maybe at some point go knight c4, and also to maybe avoid exchanges. So maybe at some point I could take on d7 and then go a4, b5, and he didn't want to allow that. That's why now I decided to go for a4 and try to implement my plan further. So just go a4, b5 and see where this leads me. After quite some thought, he played the move h7 to h6. And at this point, he had actually lost his advantage on the clock. So I was quite happy about that. And I also had the feeling that I somehow had taken over the initiative a little bit. But here I think I made a mistake. And the mistake was to very stubbornly play for this minority attack. Probably I should have gone a5 here. So this was another option which was of course on the table, because at this point you cannot really go knight to c4. So you would probably have to go back to d7. And yeah, here maybe I could just exchange on d7 and go knight a4. And I think the game would be probably around equal. Instead, after h6, I thought, well, he doesn't really have a plan if he plays some quiet moves like h6. So I can just go rook fc1 and then play b5. And this is just a little bit too ambitious. So I think I should have gone for a5 here, and then actually my opening play would not have been that bad. So maybe even his move knight b6 was not the best move in the position. So, well, I played rook fc1, and he answered this with a strong move, just a move bishop to e6. So why bishop e6? Well, in some positions, maybe already here, I threaten something like e4 at some point, and then he might not be able to take back because f7 is weak. So for that reason, bishop e6 is for once a prophylactic move against e4, and on the other hand, his plan is to plant his knight here on c4, and this is quite annoying. So by playing a5, I could have avoided this strong knight on c4. In any case, during the game, I was still pretty happy with my position, and I played the move b5. He took back and played rook a1 as an immediate move, and now c5. Yeah, so after c5, I was first thinking about taking on c5 when I was calculating some lines starting with d4, b queen c2, d takes c, c takes b, and now something like queen takes b6, queen takes c3. And I was not sure if my position is fully equal or not. So let's say after queen takes b5, I was not sure if this is an equal position or if black is slightly better. But probably after something like queen d3, the position should be around equal. After d takes c, of course, black also would have the option to take back on c5, and maybe this is actually what he should have done. And yeah, then he has this isolated pawn. But the problem is that my pieces are really miscoordinated. So the rook on a1 is not doing anything. The queen on b3 is very fragile. It can be attacked with d4 at any point. The knight on c3 is hanging around, and therefore I think my position is actually somewhat worse here as well. So that's why after c5 I decided to change my plans. So my initial idea was to go d takes c, but then after realizing that this might be quite dangerous, I decided to go for a different move, which is the move knight back to f3, protecting the pawn on d4. And here I was expecting him to go c4. I was planning to go something like queen b2 or queen b1 maybe. And I thought the position is probably around equal. I might go knight e5 at some point, and yeah, position should be around equal. Maybe queen b1 is a little bit more precise, avoiding some knight e4 shenanigans at any point. But yeah, in any case, I was expecting that to happen. Instead, he surprised me quite a bit by playing the move knight to c4. Of course, knight c4 is the idea to activate the knight, because in all these c4 lines, the knight is quite badly placed on b6. But I had the feeling that he's not really quick enough to do that. So I was counting now on just playing rook to d1, and I thought that now I'm threatening to go d takes c next move, and my position is actually pretty solid. Well, maybe now you can pause the video and you can think about which move you would have played as black. Okay, maybe you have done exactly that. And now I will show you which move my opponent played. My opponent came up with a very, very creative move here, and this is the move g5. I did not expect this move at all, and even when I saw it, I was not impressed at all. Yet it's probably a very strong move. So kudos to him for finding this idea with g5 here. So what's the idea of g5? Well, g5 of course looks pretty weakening, so his king might come under attack later on in the game. Yet it works pretty concretely here, and the main reason is, okay, I have to go back to c1, and now all of my pieces on the queen side are somewhat miscoordinated, and he manages to get some tactical counterplay very quickly. In the game he did so by playing the move queen to a5. What's the idea of queen a5? Well, he wants to go rook c8, and then maybe c takes d. And the position suddenly becomes very sharp. The computer at this point suggests to play the move h4, and after h4 I think the position is extremely complicated. Probably this is what I should have done. Yeah, I'm not sure who's better here, but I thought instead of going h4, it's more logical to actually take on c5 and go knight d4 to block his pieces already at this point in time. But I think h4 is clearly stronger here. So after h4, I think it would have been a complete mess with completely unclear complications. After d takes c, bishop c5, knight d4, I was thinking, okay, I've blocked everything, and maybe at some point I might even threaten to take on d5. But now he played another move which I didn't expect, and this is the move bishop takes d4, followed by rook c8. And in a practical game, this position is extremely unpleasant. I started realizing this a little bit here, because now it becomes clear that black has a lot of threats against my king. So for instance, I thought if I play a move like h4 here, maybe he can already go knight to e4. Well, the computer still finds some defense for white, but I did not like this position at all when I was calculating it. For instance, after knight e4, queen e1 check, I was thinking that this does not look very promising for white, but the computer finds some way of defending it after d takes e. By now, going back queen d1, I think this is very difficult to calculate such a line. Queen f2 and rook takes e4 with, again, a complete mess. However, this knight e4 looked extremely scary to me after h4. And so instead of going for this h4 in this position, which I at first intended, I went for the move bishop f1. The idea of bishop f1 is to prevent queen e1 check. And the second idea of bishop f1 is to maybe go e4 at some point. And then to put some pressure on the knight on c4. Yeah, I think that at this point, finding h4 with all these crazy complications was already too much for me at the board, and I really have no regrets about that. But like a couple of moves earlier, I should really have gone for h4. But at that point, I was still thinking that this position would actually be good for me. So, well, I saw that these pieces are a little bit loose, so that my knight, my queen, and my bishop are a little bit loose, maybe also the rook. But I thought it somehow works tactically, so I was not too afraid of this, but now it turns out that this is just not the case. So he played queen a1, another very strong move. And in my calculation, a couple of moves earlier, I had actually thought that after rook d1, he would go knight a5, and then I could go queen b2, thereby protecting the knight on c3 indirectly, and after something like takes, maybe knight c4, bishop a1, the position remains very complicated and double-edged. So I was expecting that, and I thought maybe we'll go rook a8 or something, and the position is very unclear. He's a little bit more active, but on the other hand, I have the two bishops here, and also this weakness, his king is somewhat exposed, so I had the feeling that this position should be fine for me. So this was what I had calculated when I played bishop f1. But unfortunately, after queen a1, rook d1, he does not have to go knight a5, but he can go d4, and I have to say I completely missed that idea, because I thought after any move I just have bishop takes g5, and that's what I also played in the game, so we will see later why this does not really work for me. But yeah, the main issue is that now c3 is attacked also by the queen, and I didn't see that coming. So here, white is already clearly worse, maybe even lost. There could have been another move to play. So the other move, the strongest move here even would be to go knight to a4. But yeah, during the game, I was calculating this for some time, and I had actually two lines where I was not too sure. One was knight b6. But knight b6 actually does not work. At least does not work that well, because I can go bishop takes g5. And now after bishop b3, rook a1. The fun thing is that I attack both of his knights, so he can only save one of them, and if I get the knight back, I'm a pawn up. So this does actually not work at all. Yet the other line, which I had thought about, works pretty well for black, which is to just go knight e3, attacking my queen and my rook at the same time. And now I could take on e3. I think this is more or less the only move here for me, and not to lose my rook. So bishop e3, bishop b3, rook a1, d takes e. And now black is threatening rook a8. And yeah, therefore I probably have to play some move like rook a3, when, let's say, after e takes f, king takes f2, yeah, black can say play something like bishop c2, and now rook a8 is still threatening. If I remove my knight, maybe rook c5 is coming. My king is somewhat exposed, and it's pretty obvious that black is at least better here. Yet that would probably have been my best chance after d4. So I was not really trusting this knight a4 too much. And I thought after d4 I should probably go bishop g5. And I was actually counting on some endgame to happen, but it turns out that he has a strong immediate move here. So he played queen c3, dc3, and after bishop f6, c2, rook e1. Yeah, I want to put the rook on e1 because his knight will land on b3 eventually, and then he will play c1 queen. So at that point I should have my rook on e1 and to take back with the bishop on c1. So rook e1, knight a5, bishop b2. This is a pretty forced line. Knight b3. I had actually calculated that line somewhat, and now I thought he would go c1 queen in my calculation. Takes, 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 knight e2, king g2. And my next move is probably bishop c6, and I thought I would be able to hold this endgame, which is probably true. So yeah, when I went for this whole bishop g5 idea, I was counting on that line. However, it turns out that yeah, in this position, he does not really need to go c1 queen. And yeah, that's what I missed from afar, and I think it's also somewhat understandable. But yeah, here in the game, it's now pretty clear that he can just go b6, and the black plan is just to go rook d8 and rook d1. So that's what also happened in the game. I played bishop c6, avoiding c1 queen now. He went rook d8, f3, rook d1, king f2. And even here, if he plays kind of an autopilot and exchanges and goes c1, I was still hoping to have some drawing chances. Of course, less than in the line which I showed you before. But yeah, he didn't allow me to do that. He went for bishop c4. And now in time trouble, I made the last mistake. So I probably should have gone for something like g4 here, keeping the structure intact, especially the structure, this pawn on e2, which defends an important square on d3. But in time trouble, I went for e5, and yeah, maybe you can find the finishing touch now for black. Well, I hope you found it. It's knight c5, and now it's of course obvious why I should not have gone e4 a move earlier, because now knight d3 is just killing. In the game, I played rook e3, knight e3 check, takes, king e3 with the last idea that he should not promote right now, because then at least I win back his bishop. But he just played bishop c4 with the idea of promoting in the next move on c1. Well, in this position I resigned, because obviously after c1 queen he's just full rook up, and there's no point in continuing. Well, what to say about the game? My preparation was pretty bad. After that, I think I showed a somewhat poor positional understanding by, in this position, by not going a5, within the idea of going knight a4, knight c5. And I think the main reason was that I overestimated the chances which I would get against the isolated pawn, and I completely underestimated his dynamic opportunities. Another key point in the game was this position, where my opponent found this amazing resource g5, which I would really say it's very difficult to play such a move in a classical chess game, because it's so committal, and you really have to be sure that you get enough tactical counterplay to play this move. And again, I misjudged the resulting dynamic opportunities of my opponent. And yeah, then the last, probably already last critical point was after queen a5, when I went for this d takes c followed by knight d4, which looks somewhat natural, but again underestimates his counterplay, and I probably should have gone for h4 here, which would have led to a very complicated position. Yeah, and then after rook c8, maybe a computer can still hold the position by playing something like h4 here, but I really cannot blame myself for playing bishop f1, because knight e4 looks so strong. Also after queen a1, it seems so natural to have the bishop on f1. So I think criticizing bishop f1 would not be fair in a sense. So I think this was just beyond my ability somewhat. And after d4, yeah, here I should have taken the last chance and go knight a4, but even the lines which we saw there were just clearly better for black, and I think I might even have lost the game had I gone knight a4 here. So all in all, a very clear defeat. One of the cleanest defeats of the season, maybe along with the game against Abasov and Cheparinov. And there is really not so much else I can say. So he played the game very well. He was very well prepared. He found this amazing move g5, and then he was playing better in the tactical phase of the game than me. Maybe it was also somewhat easier for him to play that, but I have to say, like, especially commenting on g5 was pretty impressive. And therefore, no regrets from my part. Apart from losing the game, the bad news on the same day were not over. The Carnival parade in the local Carnival parade here in Aachen was also cancelled due to the wind, so I could not even celebrate Carnival after this chess game, which was very unfortunate. Therefore, it was a really bad day all in all, but kudos to my opponent who played, I think, a really good game. All right, now I'm very much looking forward to the next two rounds. And as always, I will make a preview video about at next week. Thanks a lot for watching and stay tuned.